this is Hot Ones, the show with hot wings and even hotter questions.
This is Mr. Durham. He's the principal of the high school. And today, the first wing we'll be starting off with is the Red Armadillo, which on the Scoville heat units, it's 1400, 400.
Right. No. This is a communal thing.
Yes.
Right.
Do we have napkins? No, I mean, it might be nice.
Thank you. That will be needed.
Yeah. That's actually pretty good.
Yeah.
It's spicy.
So the first question of today is, do you believe people have inherent moral values, or are they shaped by society?
I believe that they have innate values. Poor chicken. Because of being made in the image of God. And so there's imprinted on them in their conscience a sense in that direction. As far as values, because there's something in them that's C.S. Lewis addresses this in his first book, part of Mere Christianity, where he talks about how that's within us to approach things. But it doesn't have like specific revelation. So you have this bent, you have this conscience, you this sense of wrong. So the question is like, where is that coming from? This sense and idea of right and wrong in this world. So, and from that, you probably in your whatever community or culture, and you kind of create your own rules around that. But I think the values within you, there's a sensitivity like that you don't necessarily maybe kill other people or do terrible things.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
fairly subjective without any specific revelation saying, no, this is the value.
So,
Sorry, yeah.
would you believe that we're all born, we have inherent within us, we believe that X or Y is wrong, but then society makes us think X and Y aren't wrong, per se?
That's a good question. I would say, I don't think it's that simple. I think but I do believe that society has a significant part. I'm not on the wayside of like determinism or like social determinism as far as that is that controlling. I think God supersedes some of those aspects, but I think it has a huge factor as far as what you're exposed to. But once again, I think there's something true within how God made us, and because your description of like in a like scenario is not godless, like at least from if I was addressing it, and therefore God still is in the story, and so I think He's imprinted things within people that makes them go like, that's not right, So now that voice, that aspect may be overwhelmed by such cultural norms, that like, have you ever seen the Mel Gibson movie Apocalypto, right?
Yeah.
Have you seen that? So super primitive culture. And yet, why does this one person have a conscience, if you will, of like, that's not right, this is, and runs away from something? So I think there's something within that might not be, it might get silenced by a majority.
Mm-hmm.
And so overwhelmed by a cultural bent against something.
So I guess with like Enoch and such, how they killed him for speaking out against.
Yeah, there you go. Right. Good example.
Did you think that one was pretty hot or no?
That one was, I'd say, more on the spicy hot versus just like hot. I think hot is coming at me at some point, but that was definitely on the spicy side.
The next one is the Wuju, which is only 4,100 more.
Well, by its name alone, it's a little intimidating.
Yeah,
if
that's it right there.
If you came to me and you were playing a sport against me and you said, I got some Wuju, I'd be like, that sounds intimidating. So, all right.
Want to dig in?
Yeah. Wuju. Mustard.
This one tastes good.
Yeah, it actually has a little sweetness.
I might buy it.
Is that Asian for like mustard sweetness?
I have no idea, honestly.
Wait, you guys are doing this interview and you don't know what your wuju is?
I'm unaware
All right,
of
all right.
Wuju.
I'd take more of that.
I would too.
Yeah, like the mustard.
Yeah, so the next question is different cultures have different moral values and beliefs. Is it ethical to judge other cultures by our own standards, or should we respect the cultural practices even if they differ?
That's a challenging question because the presupposition is whatever your vantage coming from has some kind of superior principles or values. Say if it is, then I'd say yes, definitely prefer that over another. So I believe in that idea, but I'm basing it because I believe that there are better philosophies or ways or beliefs that exist than others,
Yeah.
But I'd say in general, I'd say those are you'd want to investigate and weigh them against each other, like which of those cultures has produced, say, a level of dignity for its people, which one has produced ideas which it wouldn't really produce, but say like ideas like love or like loving other people, very things that are counter most cultures as far as their bent and as far as what they do to each other by the evidence of just history.
Yeah.
So I'd say, in general, you'd have to be really careful with that practice of what culture because you're assuming one's superior to the other.
Mm-hmm.
But do I believe in the idea that there is superior ideas to others? Absolutely.
And I feel like maybe for me, like as I'm going like living through life,
Right.
I learned that like different cultures bring different aspects to my life that I can like incorporate, and it's kind of like a mix of all of them, if that kind of like makes sense. Like you can, like not having to like pick one or the other, and just
So you have been like you are such a good representation of, Ole Miss. So there you go. Right, is that you're in the South of North America, highly influenced by Western culture that crossed the pond, highly affected by the gospel that came from the Middle East that affected for hundreds and hundreds to 100 years, went in different directions, North Africa, towards India, across, the gospel spread and it has so deeply affected Western culture that you are just in this later wave of such influence that your presuppositional thought is so deeply entrenched, you just think a certain way. Because you didn't grow up in China or someplace in the middle of like Central Africa, you grew up here, and you want to go to Ole Miss, and the subset to that is that you also went to a Christian school, so it really highlights some of that heritage and history, and that just in Christians, especially being people of the book, we just think more about things. We read and are very literate. We juxtapose our thoughts with God's word. Or you can do that, and so you are. Your perspective is very affected by, like you mentioned earlier, your surroundings, and your surroundings. Some of them you may know them, or you may not even know them. You might just be in the river of just this historical thought that you've been a part of, but it's highly effective. And so, I don't know if that's maybe too ambiguous of an answer, but right. So, thank you. Good question. I like that.
That was only the second one.
It's good wuju. All right.
Okay, so our next wing is the generals, which is 1,416 Scovilles.
That's a lot of wuju.
And it looks like a grenade.
That's
pretty cool.
Super cool.
A little intimidating.
That is very intimidating. How do you open this? Do you pull it?
You
Sorry.
turn. Yeah, that's what me and Tyler were saying.
Right.
It'd be cool if they had a pin to pull.
That
you could just twist the top.
The guys who produced that probably had so much fun. So, love that. So this will definitely incinerate within me. Okay, I guess that's the implication. All right, gotcha. Mm-hmm.
That one tastes good too. Like good flavor.
Hmm. That's hot. The generals. Yeah, that has some definitely after, like, I'm getting hotter.
Yeah, it
now.
definitely
Right,
kicks
right,
in.
right.
But the next two are like way hotter.
Thank you. Good commercial. Appreciate that. More Wuju.
Yeah, for this one, the question is: if you're in a situation where your department chair or supervisor was doing something unethical that violated school policy, how would you react?
Okay, I thought of a sarcastic answer, but I'll do the nice one.
Say this sarcasm.
Well, in all situations, if you want to do things Christianly, you want to preserve dignity and respect. Because all the people we hire here are good people, and oftentimes whatever decision that might be unethical or wrong that they got themselves in, it's probably all these lists of decisions that were prior to that ultimately got to that point. And so you want to always proceed with a measure of love as much as you have to have serious conversations, and you will not be working here any longer, whatever that means. That's also not just on me. I'd probably pull in counsel, as far as people that would be intermediate before even meeting with that person. Depends. I don't know the details of the made up situation, but basically, I'd probably have some kind of counsel around it. I would want to make sure it's accurate, first of all. And so some of it is to approach it with those kind of things. But you kind of said it was already conclusive, like they were unethical. And so if that's the case, then I would want to pursue with a level of respect, preserve dignity. You always want to have desire for restoration and good for that person, but they would not remain working here anymore.
Okay.
Right.
Understood. I do have one question for you, and I'll guess similar topic. And only answer what you feel comfortable with. But what is the craziest situation that has occurred here at the school during your time that you're willing to divulge?
A good add-on. The craziest situation.
Or story, or just something.
The craziest. Well, this is not that crazy, but it's kind of funny. We had these guys, imagine the senior guys who were upset these girls went on this trip and it got approved, but they didn't get one. They didn't necessarily not get it approved. They just weren't like creative to think of one. Mm-hmm. They just, when the girls were gone, they're like, we just want to go. Like, really, that's not like a developed thought or idea. So they did a lay down so in my office used to be next door in the other building. And in the whole foyer area, they all just laid down. So it was like this peaceful protest, So they all the senior guys' bodies were laying in the foyer, and I was like, okay, guys. So that was actually kind of funny, but I'm like, okay, that was good. That was actually pretty good. That was creative.
How long did it last for?
Just minutes. They did kind of for them to make their point. Another one as far as a senior prank, and I'm not encouraging a senior prank, but this one was clever. I was like, that was actually good. We used to do exams this way. So we used to do exams where we were all in the same room. You might have been a part of this. Right. So we used to all be in the gym 1 together and have all these tables, and we do all our exams in there, so not in our rooms. So our idea back then that we thought was such a good idea was that we were prepping you guys for sitting in your SAT, ACT, things like that. Obviously, we don't do that anymore, but we used to. And so the senior prank was this. During the exam, it's going on, alarm goes off, and it's somewhere in that room. So this is during a testing session. So everybody's like looking down there like, so we had to like find the alarm. 10 minutes later, another alarm goes off in another place, and they're like, all the students are like, what? And so we have to go find, multiple, and it was paced like that, alarms went off. Completely wrecked the testing session. But honestly, it was pretty funny. So, yeah. So.
All right, and then one more fun question for now, at least.
Sure.
Would you rather play in one Premier League game, or would you rather play in one Premier League game of your choice, or have season tickets to any game of your choice for your life?
Ooh, that's a tough one. But I'd probably go with the season tickets.
Okay.
Mainly because those guys are elite athletes,
Yeah.
and I would get wrecked. And so that little moment of like glory would be like a Ted Lasso episode, and I would be, I'd be like looking like upright at the lights, and like probably carried off. And so my romantic side of me would be like, I'm playing in the game. The realistic side of me is like, I'm being taken to a hospital, because of playing at that level. Therefore, I'd go with the season tickets.
Think about it, if you do get to play in the game, if you're off, you get to feel the magic spray. You can tell us what it was.
Yeah, so I think they would need extra magic spray. Yeah, so thank you, though, Christopher, for thinking that way. So,
All right.
that was a good question. That was fun. I like that.
Let's eat the next one.
Yeah, yes.
All right.
So this is the Carolina Reaper, which is at basically 21,000.
That sounds supposed to be
This one right here.
deathly. I mean, look
Yeah.
at that. Reaper.
There's a little skull right there.
Yes. By Traeger.
It's
Gotcha.
5,000 higher than the last.
Ooh. Just go for it, right? How do you like it?
I didn't really taste it.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Like the spice is there, but
Oh,
not like
okay,
a
gotcha,
taste.
right.
Taste. It tastes pretty good, actually.
Mhm.
To my surprise.
Yeah, you're right. Okay. All right.
And then the next one is rough.
Thank you.
So, for the next question. If you were in a situation... Is that the rest of what you just did? All right. If your wife is pregnant, but the doctor says the continuing of the pregnancy will result in your wife's death 100% confidently, would you abort the child? Aborting the child is the only way to save your wife, and she is 6 weeks pregnant.
Yeah, so we already discussed that so I'm married and have blessed with 5 children, and we already discussed that together. So I think that's a very difficult moral dilemma. I'd probably say it probably like I'm against abortion. I'm very pro sanctity of life, but that's the debate as far as especially the earlier weeks. People can get in a lot of fights over like what's developed at that point. But we decided, as far as an area of conscience, what I meant by that is I would probably respect other people who would get in good moral arguments over like very, very early times. But we landed more on the side of like, if that came to it, that ultimately I deferred to my wife, and she was on the side of like the baby's development is worth it, and but that was me deferring to her for such a serious decision, and it was very, very hard, but such a value of the life within her. Now, what's complicated by that is that you're choosing to have, by doing that in this kind of ethical dilemma, to have your other children motherless and you wifeless. And so it is it seems to be putting two incredibly beautiful values against each other. The value of life that is true and the plausibility, because you're not guaranteed that child is going to go to term, right? In your question.
Yeah.
So you don't know that. And so you're basing your decision on truly valuing life and the hope of it versus the certainty of like, I'm looking at my children right there. But that's where we landed. It was a very difficult decision, but we weren't really pressed into it. Yeah. And so I would hope that in that moment, and this is true, I think, as far as God's economy, is that God does not give us grace. You want to have a level of like moral clarity and ethical clarity beforehand. But when the storm hits, so you want to have that before the storm hits. Mm-hmm. But when the storm hits, that's when God provides his grace. He doesn't give it for ethical dilemmas and interviews like this, exactly. Right? But when you're in it, you're hoping and praying that God, will you give me both your presence and your perspective to make the right decision? Because no matter what, I believe this, no matter what, he's still going to love you. He may grieve over something because he loves the woman who's had an abortion. He loves her deeply. Yeah. And he loves the husband that may have been torn up over that because he got her, they had a pregnancy because of them being intimate. So He loves people who are broken, and broken people make broken decisions in a broken world. And so,
It's a good quote.
I would say, oh, thank you. So I'd say that that's a terrible circumstance. But if you're ever around, for example, a crisis pregnancy center that we have, those are what happen weekly, and so it should be a no judgment zone.
Yeah.
Christians should be incredibly the most loving people to people who are put in those circumstances because they're always hard. Mm-hmm. So it's easy from a distance to judge and say, "Hey, she shouldn't have an abortion," but in truth, that's a difficult decision. It's very hard. Things help as far as the lady making a very reasonable decision because that's where different kind of like views into her, like a sonogram, can be helpful because you can see it's not as abstract like this growth within me, but they're always complicated. So I think they need to be treated. I went in that scenario, but with a level of like dignity and respect and care. As far as the decision making, but for us, we landed on the side.
I was
going to
say it probably happens a lot more often than you really think about it, which is terrible.
Well, the similar decision. So I'm glad you brought this up. There's a test that you can take. So when you're going to be husbands one day, there's a test that you can that your wife can take that tests the fluid that's within her, and you can tell if that child's going to be a Down syndrome baby or not. And so one of the main reasons that people take that test is so they can abort the child. So concurrently, we never took that test. We're like, no, we're not going to take that test. Whoever God has decided that we are to have as a child, that will be a blessing from Him and precious in His sight and in His providence. So that you can see how that decision, that's why we didn't take the test because we don't need the test.
Yeah, right. You're gonna be happy either way.
Right. So, good question. Thank you.
Yeah.
That was my question.
Yes.
That was a heavy one.
Yeah, that was very heavy.
Right.
Well, anyway, so back in high school, and then you possibly could have always wanted to be a teacher, but has there ever been any other part of your life where there's something else you felt passionate towards?
Yes. A lot of you guys know I'm an artist, and so I have a passion for creating and making and designing, and so I still do that. Yeah. I just don't do it enough, and because being a principal just taxes you in a lot of ways, even though it's enjoyable. I love it in many ways, but there is a part of me that if I did not do it, I would be like dying within, and because of how God made me. But so I'd say that. I like to write, but I haven't written enough. But I would definitely say on the art side, that is still within me. So my next will probably have something in that area of like just having more time to create and make and share that with other people.
I might be wrong, but did you paint one of the like a portrait for Mr. Elliot of I think Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, or maybe
close? No, it's good. No, it's good. Were you in that class?
I was. Yes,
okay,
sir, yeah.
That's awesome. So that was I did a painting.
Yeah.
I didn't do it for him. But then when Miss Elliott saw it, she's like, that needs to be for my husband. And so she got, so it was almost that. But no, I love history. And I enjoy painting. So I captured on that canvas a famous battle called the Battle of Agincourt. Mm-hmm. And that's when King Henry goes in battle. He's British. He's coming over to his lands in France. And they have this battle. They're completely outnumbered, hugely outnumbered. And yet he's victorious. And so that was the painting. So yeah.
And I vaguely remember it, but I remember there being like, wasn't it like kind of like boxed off?
Yes.
And there was like different like kind of like abstract parts of it.
Yeah. So a lot of my artwork, good job. I appreciate your memory of that. So a lot of my artwork would be called like almost a montage of things. So a collage of a lot of imagery and paint. So it has this abstract feel and images on it, but also has this bit of realism all mixed together. So it's very on the abstract kind of side. But it's very satisfying.
Yeah, it was really cool.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that. Love that.
I'm curious. Why did you decide to become the principal?
That's a good question. So I've always, for many years, I've been a leader of different things, and so I led like a soccer team, or I'd done things where I wanted to help the school in some way, and so I led as a dean of students. And then I found myself in that role doing other administrative things because you just care about other people and you want things to run well. And so it was more that kind of bent of I do have ideas and a vision for things and want to help things move forward. In this case, it's a school. If I was in a church, I'd help the church move forward. If it was a team, how can I help the team move forward? And so in this sense, it was a team of teachers and how that can be a blessing. So one of my visions is how can I make a high school, and it's still in process, but how can I make a high school that's dynamic for its students, still college preparatory, but have a lot of things that they can do and experience, especially as a Christian school, because I've been part of like hiring different people. How can I have like teachers that are like dynamic, part of that team to talk about God's word and his truth, do things like this. And as far as engaging the students. So, how can I help be a part of creating a high school I would have wanted to go to, so as far as the arts, athletics, and then even like intellectual engagement. So.
Awesome.
Yeah.
We ready for next week?
Next
Final
week.
one?
Here we go.
Just a little heads up. This one is over 100,000 more than the last one.
That's a lot of wuju. Okay.
It's called The Bomb. So I think we can just put some on the plate and then
On the
board and then dip your wing
As much as you want.
as much
Lather.
or as less. As you
So
like.
Say this is for Miss Thompson.
this is for Mrs. Tompkins.
There you go.
Yeah.
It's all at the same time.
Well,
Chris, get
Yeah, going in there.
How about we just watch Chris's reaction?
well, you covered that thing.
Okay, never mind. All right.
Might as well.
Here it goes. This is the bomb.
Yep.
All right.
Make sure you don't touch your face. Serious, don't touch your face. Don't touch your face.
That is the bomb.
Yeah. Pretty spicy.
That is a when the charts go like that. That's that part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Way up there.
Yeah. That's hot. As Chris's eyes get teary
You want
eyed.
me to ask the last question?
Might be smart.
Have you gone to your milk yet?
I have not. I don't think anyone has. Let's see who goes.
I've gone
it
to my
first.
Dunkin'. And I'm definitely going to my Dunkin'.
All right, this one's slightly deeper. Would you deny Christ to save the entire student body at fellowship? If you refuse to deny Christ, all students and faculty will be brutally killed. And I'm not like laughing because that's funny. It's obviously because of the wing.
Chris, will you lick this? Woo! That's hot. Will you repeat the question?
Yeah, might be tough.
That's really hot.
All right. Would you deny Christ to save the entire student body at fellowship? If you refuse to deny Christ at all students K through 12 and faculty will be brutally killed. I'm gonna go to the milk.
All right, so
I'm powering through it.
I would. It's a great question. Because God knows my heart, my mind, and I'm not beholden to man, except right now in this milk.
Thank you, Quentin.
More milk. Thank you. All right, fill that baby up. All right. Woo! I would deny Christ with my lips, but not with my heart and my mind. So similar question is like, would you lie to someone to save these people? Like you did a scenario with like Nazi Germany to save these people's lives behind you. Like, what is my words before a man who is nothing, but God knows my heart and my mind. Woo! And my tears. And but I would say, in truth, I am not denying Christ. But who is this man in front of me, or this woman? Sorry. I would verbally deny for the sake of the people behind me to save their lives and be willing to die.
Well, I
But-
would say Christ forgave Peter for denying him 3 times, so
Yes.
he would forgive you too.
Thank you.
Because most of the
Whew!
heat is in my lips, not even in my mouth.
Yeah, talk about the heat.
The heat is coming out of your eyes right now. So
Do you want some
What?
milk, Chris?
No, I'm powering through it. I can get through. It's getting better, but it's just weird. It's in my lips, like right here.
Mine's everywhere.
the milk is good.
Looks refreshing.
Yeah, so I don't know if that helps as far as like the idea of like I know my heart, I know my mind before God. Words, so in truth, I'd say no, I'm not denying Christ, because He knows me and He knows my heart and my mind. But for the sake of the people, like it was my family, like it's words.
So you're saying you would just say like deny Christ, but in your heart you obviously wouldn't. Like you wouldn't mean it.
Right. Because at that point, it's not about me.
Yeah.
Now, the different scenario in that, though, guys, is if it was like just me.
Mm-hmm.
So, in the wager is just me, and there's nobody that I'm like beholden to. That's a very different scenario as far as ethically. And so, in that scenario, I would, and it was like about my life, I would not deny Christ. I don't know if that makes sense.
Let's do
Yes,
thanks
I
and then
understand.
the outro.
Do
All
what?
right. Well, thank you for being
Yeah,
here today
thank
with
you.
us. I hope you enjoyed the wings.
And the spicy,
Yep.
the bomb sauce.
Sure I did.
It's definitely the bomb.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, thank you, guys. Those are really good questions, and none of those are easy. But they're good questions, and you're the better for it as men if you wrestle over such things and have clarity. We need guys like you going into college to have a higher level of moral clarity of what you're about, because everybody around you probably hasn't thought as deeply as you have, at least more likely. But it's great to have someone in the room who has that voice and that perspective, and because people are wanting that, they want truth.
All right.
So, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you for
you.
your kind words.
Nice.
All right.
Thank you.
Woo! That's hot.
All right.
That's really hot.
Okay. This camera. What are you most excited for next year?
For next year. Oh, short. Okay. For next year, I'm excited about my youngest son, Asher, being in the high school.
Great answer. Perfect.
Great.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Woo!